dark horse team is a team that comes out of nowhere and makes noise in college football. My question is, why couldn't that team be Boston College this year?
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I am your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you want the news, the analysis, and the scoops on your Boston College Eagles, you are in the right place. We are a free daily Boston College podcast available 5 days a week on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Shout out to all my first listeners and everydayers. Those are the folks that really make this podcast work. You listen every day, and maybe it's your first thing you turn on when you get ready in the morning. Now, on today's show, we'll touch a little bit on recruiting. It's something you guys always want to talk about. Mass recruiting. What will it look like in 2027, and will Boston College have a big role in it? Ty Lockwood, a tight end who will be with BC this fall, he's going to have a big season. I'll explain why. And my biggest question, the one I started off with, why not BC this year? Let's get into it. So, a dark horse. Let's no presumed knowledge here. A dark horse is a team that comes out of nowhere and really shocks the world of sports. It can happen in any sport. A lot of times it's a college sport, a football and basketball type of discussion, but it could be anywhere. In college football, in the ACC specifically, we've talked a lot about NC State. That's a team that usually gets this moniker. They're a team that usually doesn't get a lot of attention, and then boom, out of nowhere, they're beating good teams. They've got wins at like 8, 9, or 10, and they're all of a sudden the team that like everyone is talking about. Last year, the dark horse was Syracuse. Fran Brown takes over a team that didn't even make the bowl. They win 10 games. They have a quarterback that breaks records and throws for over 4,000 yards. They beat Miami. They are the sweethearts, the dark horses of college football. This season, you're going into the ACC schedule, and you're looking at really two teams, I think, that are really solid contenders for the favorites, and that's Miami and Clemson. But right below them are the guys that could, pick one of them off. That's your SMUs, your Louisvilles, you've got a few other teams that could fit that role. And then below there, you got, more of the masses with like UNC, Georgia Tech, Pitt, and then, around maybe a little bit lower, you got BC. My big question is, why is BC should be higher than just near the middle, in the bottom, I mean. B, why can't they be the dark horse this year? When you have a team that comes out of nowhere to pick off better programs, to win 8, 9 games, what are some of the things that they need to have? They need to have a good coach. First of all, Boston College has that very clearly. And it's my opinion. And I think that BC hired a year ago the best coach that they could have with what they have at BC. We saw what he did with Penn State. We saw what he did with the Texans. As an in-game coach, Bill O'Brien is very good. And I think that is going to make BC a tough out for whoever falls on their schedule. Now, I'm not going to give you all sunshine, rainbows, and roses here and say that BC is going to beat Notre Dame or they're going to beat Clemson. I don't think anyone's beating Clemson this year. They're going to be a tough out. They've got a very good offense. They got a very good defense. Not saying that BC is going to be the team to do that. But you look at the rest of the schedule, and you see teams like Louisville, who, minus Tommy Castellanos last year, BC probably would have beaten. SMU, BC almost beat a playoff team on the road. You have Syracuse. BC made them look sharp and soft in the second half of that game. Georgia Tech, beatable. Why can't Boston College, with a coach like Bill O'Brien, be a dark horse this year? Yes, they don't. We're gonna have the Locked On Top 100 come out, and I'm guessing no BC players made that. The All ACC team preseason will come out, and I'm sure no BC players made that. But the next piece about having a good head coach that you need is the ability to develop. And I think that's what we're going to see with Bill O'Brien. This is going to be the first year where many of these guys are his guys. It's not Jeff Hafley. BC won 7 games last year without Bill O'Brien really bringing in any guys. Now you have your VJ Wilkins, your Dylan Lonergans, your defensive guys like Favor Bate and Anya Nwisi, and guys that maybe Bill O'Brien's watched tape and said, hey, those are the guys that I want to bring here. That is what should make them hard. Additionally, in addition to having a good coach, what does a dark horse really need? A good quarterback. And I'm not going to get into it again because, man, I have spent a lot of internet minutes talking about Dylan Lonergan versus Grayson James. But one thing I could tell you is that having either of these quarterbacks is better than what you had last year when you had Tommy Castellanos. Grayson James, yes, he's more of a game manager, but he can win you games. Dylan Lonergan, if he is the guy, this is what you need for a dark horse, is a quarterback that's explosive. And if Lonergan ends up being that way, I mean, man, there's a lot to get to that. That could make BC a really tough out. And I look at this offense. I look at what BC has, and I say, with those quarterbacks, they can put up points. And they're not going to have to win games on the back of their defense if they're putting up points. So their defense may put up, maybe let up a touchdown here or there or a couple. But that offense is going to keep them in games. And they're going to be much more well-rounded, too. You're going to have a quarterback that can play this year. You're not going to have a quarterback that can't see over his offensive line and struggles with basic reads and all that good stuff. You're going to have 2 quarterbacks battling that are much better than that. You're also going to have a special teams unit for the first time in Bill O'Brien's career. Hopefully they're going to take a step forward. Just the fact that you have, I keep saying this, the fact that you now have, hopefully, and again, a lot of time and there's a lot of hoping that it works. You now have a kicker and hopefully a punter. That is a huge boost for your team because you did not have either of those last year. So that's going to be a big boost for BC. So again, you look at the schedule. 2 of those games. I hate saying Notre Dame because I know you guys all love it. You want to see BC beat them. They are so good in the trenches right now. I just don't see BC beating them. Same thing with Clemson. Clemson is going to be so tough. Notre Dame is going to be tough too. But every other one of those games, who says BC can't win them? You may. Maybe you're just jaded from being a BC fan for years. But maybe things have changed. Maybe Bill O'Brien is the guy that they think that he is, and things are going to change this year. So I look at this and say, BC definitely can be a dark horse. All it takes is ripping off a win against Louisville and Georgia Tech, and all of a sudden the season is flipped on its head. Like think of it this way. You go out and beat the teams you're supposed to beat. You beat your Fordhams, your Cals, your Stanfords, UConn. You got 4 wins right there. You beat Syracuse. Then you rip off a win against, Georgia Tech and SMU. 7 wins. You beat Michigan State. You got 8. Who says that can't happen? I'm not sure. I'm not there yet, but I'm not saying that this is something that's completely out of left field. BC went out last year and just stomped Florida State to start that year. If they go out there and make that impression again, they can really get things rolling. You just beat Michigan State. If you beat Michigan State to start this year off, there's no reason BC couldn't start this year off 4 or 5-0. 4 wins, beat Cal, you beat Stanford. You could be 4-0, 5-0. It could happen. It really could. Now, in our second segment, let's talk about one player that will be critical if they're going to get to that spot. Ty Lockwood. I'll explain why he is in line for a big year and why he could be the future of tight ends for BC. I'll explain in a minute. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're into singing birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the golf course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. When I was doing high school golf, this is what my prime time for golfing. I was doing terrible during tryouts. I played 3 rounds of golf and I was near the bottom. We're on a really tough hole around cut time, and I hit my drive into the woods. My approach shot went within 5 feet of the cup, and I hit it on a 5-foot putt to give me a birdie. That was. I don't think things get higher any better than that. So golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive $20 off, 20% off your order. Again, that's 20%. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order. It cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-hour energy shots today. Locked on Boston College. This is your host, AJ Black. And man, we are right around the bend to camp. If you're listening today, camp has started. How cool is that? We have been, for 6 months getting into everything behind the scenes, but now it's on the field. We'll be there. I will be there for many of these practices. I'll have staff there for the ones I can't get to, and we'll be talking all about everything that's going on there. So thank you for all our first listeners, but you want to make sure that you have us subscribed on YouTube where we get podcasts to make sure you get all your Boston College Eagles news from us. Now, the transfer portal last year might have been a little underwhelming. You only had a few big names, and you had the 2 Alabama boys. Those were the 2 ones that really stood out. There was Dylan Lonergan, who I've given enough internet space to with that battle with Grayson James, and I'm not going to bring him up right now. And you had Ty Lockwood. Now, honestly, when you're looking at all the stories that we've discussed and everything going on for this camp, Ty Lockwood is a name that really doesn't get the publicity I think that he really needs, because he's going to be a very big part of this offense going into the 2025 season. You look at what BC did last year. They had Kamari Morales, they had Jeremiah Franklin. Both of those guys were solid. Nothing spectacular, but they did exactly what you asked them to do. They were good at it, and they were fine. They had about, 57 catches and 9 touchdowns between the 2 of them. But what they did and what Jeremiah Franklin does, and he's going to be your tight end 1. And I've seen some other sites being kind of tough on him. I don't get it because I think he's pretty good. But what I think is what you have with Ty Lockwood is the potential to take it to that next level. You watch the NFL or you watch college football and you see the Travis Kelce's, the Rob Gronkowski's, even the Brock Bowers and Hunter Henrys out there. Just tight ends that demand more attention than some other tight ends. And BC for the last couple of years have had tight ends that you have to obviously pay attention to, but they don't have the pizzazz or the explosiveness of, say, a Tommy Sweeney or a Hunter Long, who were just so good. I think Ty Lockwood could be that next caliber tight end. And, he's new. He's not been here for that long. So maybe it'll take him a while to get adjusted. But, once he gets to camp again, I saw pieces of it during spring camp where he made some good plays, and he's quick. He's got good hands. He's not a slow trotting tight end out there. He's got movement. He moves and he gets around. But I think this fall you're going to need him because BC plays a lot of 1 running back, 2 tight end sets. You're going to have a Turbo Richard or Jordan McDonald back there, along with Jeremiah Franklin and most likely Ty Lockwood. And Franklin, he again has done a great job with what he's done. He's developed really well. It's going to be Lockwood who's going to have to step up. He's going to have to be able to become not only a good run blocker, but also a valuable asset in that passing game. Now, he's a former 4-star recruit. If you haven't been listening enough to know about who he is, Ty Lockwood was a 4-star recruit, and not just like a 4-star recruit. There's some of them out there that You're like, how does he a 4-star? No one else has offered him. Everybody offered Ty Lockwood out of high school. He went to school in Tennessee. He was a very sought after recruit. I mean, he ended up at Alabama. Of course, other schools wanted him. So the talent is there. The only thing with him is that he's coming from the Crimson Tide, which is just talent on top of talent on top of talent on top of 5-star to top of 5-star to top of 4-star. Like the depth chart is just insane in Tuscaloosa. So he just got buried. He never got an opportunity to showcase what he can do. This year should be that showcase. It may take him a little while to get used to it, but I could see Ty Lockwood getting in really quick with this offense. Remember, if it's Dylan Lonergan, those two are buddies. If Dylan Lonergan wins this job, Lonergan, was roommates with Lockwood at Alabama, so they know each other very, very well. I could see that being an asset, but I also just think he has that potential to be that next level tight end, and I think this is the year where it could unlock, and it will be so valuable because, as I said, tight ends are such an important part of Bill O'Brien's offense. You need to have two good ones to do it. And you have a Zeke Moore and you have, some of the younger guys that are there. But it really is Ty Lockwood's job to lose. And I don't think he's lost it. I think he's looked fine. But what will he look like this fall? What will he be able to do? I think that'll be a storyline that's well worth watching. So this is one position that I think is really going to be interesting. How much will he be used in that passing game? Because Morales did. He was very, he had 6 touchdowns. Will Franklin be that guy, or will Lockwood do it? That'll be something worth watching. Now, in just a moment, let's flip the script a little bit. Let's get into recruiting because there was a question that came in on my message board on Eagle Insider about the state of local recruiting for the class of 2027. And will Boston College be heavily in it? I'll explain what I mean and what my answer is to that in just a moment. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. But again, we've been doing this podcast for 5 years. I almost have 1,000 episodes. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube or your podcast. And if you're looking for a second listen, check out Locked On ACC with Kenton Gibbs and Alex Stano. They're talking realignment this week. You want to hear what they have to say on that. And with the start of football, they got some good things to talk about there. Now, the class of 2026 is basically done for Boston College. As I've said before, there'll be a few flips they may be involved in or lose. And there's going to be some senior film guys that they're going to look at and say, oh, this was a guy we should have offered, and they're going to try to get those guys. But now you can kind of look back at what they've done. And you can look and see that the class of 26, for the most part, they did pretty well in the state of Massachusetts. Now, it ended on more of a sour note because the two biggest names that they were going after, Carter Gooden and Marky Walbridge, ended up going to Michigan and UCLA. So it was 2 losses at the end, but otherwise, they hit on everyone else they were looking at. There were guys that were local that they just weren't interested in, with whether it was U-Haul, Anthony Looney Hall, or Marcus Almada or Nick Fioramora. They weren't offering those guys. So they did pretty well. Now, the question is, going into the class of 27, how big of a class of local recruits is Boston College going to go after? Now, they already have one. Jackson Tucker of Catholic Memorial, the younger brother of Max Tucker. He's a safety. He's been committed for a while. That was a big one that they really wanted. Jackson was at every practice I was at. Like, this is a kid that really wanted to come here. They landed him without letting him really open up his recruitment. So you had him. But you look at what else is local in terms of recruiting, and I think it's time to have a frank conversation. The next year probably will involve having a smaller local recruiting class, and that is okay because it's not that BC is losing guys. It's just there's some guys they're just not looking at. Example A, you have Peter Bork, the quarterback from Catholic Memorial. They're just not recruiting him. I don't know why. I can't. I'm not even going to venture a guess. But you've seen his offer list. He just got offered by Georgia. He's offered by, all the big schools, Penn State. They're all looking at him. BC just hasn't showed any interest in him. And if you want to say that's a bad thing or a good thing, that's fine too. I don't, I trust that they know what they're doing. And they just didn't show interest in him, just like they did with Marcus Almada or Anthony Hall. They just are not interested in him. And that's the same thing with, and I believe Keegan Croucher is Connecticut, but he's another local recruit that's going to be a 4-star, and BC hasn't even bothered to offer him. He's looking at Oregon State and Penn State. Like, he's got a ton of offers. And BC maybe it's just not wasting your resources on a kid that's just never coming here. But they're not showing that interest there too. So those are two that, when they don't show up on recruiting, committing to BC, you can't say it's a loss. They're just not recruiting them. That's how it works. The big name I think that everyone's going to watch for is Isaiah Rogers, the running back from Springfield Central. And I'm sure there's some other recruits. I know Tabor Academy has a few that are floating around, like Borten Vargas and stuff like that. But I'm not sure. I think when you're at the end of the day, you had 10 or 11 local Massachusetts recruits in the class of 2026 that were Power 4 viable. I could easily see that there's probably 5 or 6 next year, and 2 of them BC's not showing any interest in. So I think when you're looking at the class of 2027, you have to really think that BC is not going to be going heavily locally, unless there's some tape that's I haven't heard about yet. I think it's going to be a quieter year. And I think what you're going to see is Bill O'Brien going more nationally for those recruits. He's going to be offering kids, you look at the quarterbacks they offered. You had a kid from Florida and a kid from Arizona. That could be more of the case for some of these other positions. I see a lot of New Jersey kids and Ohio kids. You have to go where the talent is. You can't just take every local kid just because they're a local kid. If you don't think they're going to work here, you don't waste your roster spot on them. And I think that's where we're at with this. I'm thinking 3, maybe 4 at most local. And it depends on, how tapes go. But I think it's going to be a smaller group. And that's okay. One thing I trust with Bill O'Brien is his ability to identify talent. Because if you watch around the country, some of the kids that didn't end up here that BC offered early and were, D'Anthony Lafayette, for instance, was a kid that I even talked to that BC had for a visit. They had him set up for an official visit. They were really high on this kid and got in early. And then what happened? Everybody and their mother found out about this kid's tape and they started offering, whether it was LSU, Florida State. Like, he's everywhere now. That's what BC does. This staff does a good job of finding these kids before other schools do. So maybe they do. Maybe that's what happens in Massachusetts next year, but I'm not sure. Now, this is our final episode before the start of camp. We made it. If I could do the graphic thing, I'd have streamers coming down. For 6 months, it's been talking about what's going on behind the scenes. Now it's time to get into the camp. On tomorrow's show, I will be recording after camp with takeaways. What did I see? What notes do I have? What came up during the press conference? Any goodies that you guys need to know about your Boston College Eagles, I will get into. Well, other than the depth chart, because I've been sworn to secrecy by the school. I'm telling you folks, they will not let me talk about depth chart stuff. It's what they say. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. I'm available on Facebook, Instagram, Bluetooth, Blue Sky, Threads, and TikTok. Just look up AJ Black, Locked On BC or Eagle Insider. I'm available everywhere. Make sure you check out my work on Eagle Insider, though. I'm going to be doing some video stuff over there soon, too, so hopefully you enjoy all that. And thank you all for tuning in to Locked On Boston College, your team every day.